Croc Legend of the Gobbos is getting a remaster, stated to come out sometime in 2025. So I was just editing this video when this happened. Yeah, so we have a release date. It's fine, just pretend like I already know that this release date has been announced in this video, and it's fine. Huh. Well, that was weird. Anyway, as I was saying, so Croc Legend of the Gobbos is said to release sometime in 2025. Naturally, I was a bit excited.
Oh, yeah! Whoa! Yeah! Croc's back, baby!
Okay, maybe more than a bit. But what is it about Croc that makes me defend him as if he was my own son? Why is a remaster a good thing? Let's look back at the first game together. We'll look at the good, the bad, the Yoshi. Yeah, no one's gonna get that. As well as my hopes for the remaster in what I pray isn't the last time we see of Croc. Here's a quick history of Croc for you. We have the awesome chaps at Argonaut Software, responsible for creating Croc, and are actually the same folks making the remaster. That's pretty cool, that after all these years they've come back, revived the studio to revive Croc. And hopefully more, like maybe a Croc 2, but that's for another video. My favourite fact about Croc is that originally he was planned to be a 3D Yoshi game. Crazy, right? Argonaut used to work with Nintendo. They gave them the Super FX chip used for Star Fox on the SNES. They pitched an idea for a Yoshi racing game for the N64, but in an interview it was stated that despite Nintendo having interest, they already had an idea for a game and thus rejected it. The game in question is believed to be none other than Super Mario 64, meaning they had to end their time with Nintendo and find somebody else. Fox Interactive decided to take them in with big plans. They redesigned Yoshi into Croc and turned it into a 3D platformer. The systems it came out on were PlayStation 1, which is how I always played, PC, and I believe the Sega Saturn. Whenever I bring up this fun fact about Croc origins, people almost can't believe it. Whoa, what? No way. It's crazy to think that we could have never have gotten Mario 64. Instead, a 3D Yoshi game. What could have been, eh? One of these games' biggest appeals is its charm. It was absolutely made for kids with its cutesy main character and cartoon-like nature. You see this as soon as this screen comes up. The Gobbos blowing up a balloon with the Argonaut logo. It's silly, it's cute, it's fun. Followed by the story. Croc is a crocodile. No! He was found by the king of the Gobbos, these fluffy, peaceful creatures, who raises Croc and even trains him. In comes Baron Dante the villain and his minions, who's kind of a bully. Starts casting magic to torment the Gobbos and capturing any he can find, including the king. But before he does, the king helps Croc escape, puts on his backpack and gets whisked away by a magical bird. So already you get the goal. Stop Baron Dante, rescue the king and the Gobbos. Easy to understand, straightforward. And then comes the other appeal of this game. The music. This soundtrack has got to be one of my favorites in video games. It's funky, it's catchy, it's feel-good music. I listen to it in my own time. However, what we need to talk about, which the remaster could improve on, is the gameplay. Croc's standard moveset is as followed. He can run and jump, uses his tail to attack, and can stomp. Similar to Yoshi! Hey, starting to make sense, isn't it? He can also climb on certain walls or grates. This is all fine, but how does Croc control? This game uses tank controls, similar to games like Tomb Raider. Now, tank controls was pretty prominent back in the day on the PS1, however, tank controls aren't for everyone, and even though I've played this game for years, I was never a big fan of it, at least when it came to Croc. But I also understand that some people are fine with it. It takes getting used to and can lead to some deaths. Despite this though, I'm happy to hear that one of the changes that the remaster is going to do is add a different control scheme, where you can toggle between the OG controls and the new one. Since I have no idea what Croc will control like, all I will say is games like Crash Bandicoot 2 and 3 are really good feeling controls for a 3D platformer, so if it's anything like that, I will be happy, but we'll just have to wait and see. You can turn 180 degrees by pressing circle, and do this while running for a quick turn, but I don't see myself really using this. Pressing the shoulder buttons will make Croc strafe from left to right. Again, something I never really understood what the use for was, so I just didn't use it. After all, Croc does have a bit of a startup when he moves, almost like Sonic. In terms of the game structure, there are 4 worlds and a bonus world, 6 levels and 2 boss fights. You start off in a greenery setting with wood, rocks and lava, while occasionally going through doors, sometimes leading to a cave or two that may have a simple box pushing puzzle. Unique to this world are these giant snakes. At least I think they are. A worm?
Ah, I guess according to the manual it is worms. Well, now I know.
They will pop out of wells to try and munch on Croc. Usually there's a jelly platform inside the well you can bounce on, but sometimes they lead to more caves. This world also introduces balloons, which you can grab on and it will take Croc on a certain path before popping. I really like the jelly and balloons, as it adds to the cartoony, childlike theme of the game. Through the levels you'll notice the collectibles of the game, these sparkly objects called crystals that act like rings in a Sonic game. As long as you have one, they act as a hit point for Croc, otherwise it's a one hit lose life. Collect 100 of these and you get an extra life. But that's not the only crystals. There are 5 coloured crystals you can collect, which are used to open a secret door at the end of each stage. One thing to note though, is that sometimes a coloured crystal will disguise itself as a regular one. So if you think you've missed one and remember a trail of regular crystals you didn't grab, could have been one of those colour crystals. Very sneaky. The other collectible is of course the Gobbos. There are 6 to find in total, although they aren't mandatory to beat the game. They are if you want to access the bonus world. These adorable creatures will be all over, from platforms, inside boxes, puzzles, cages. When you get close to them, you'll hear them squeak and they'll yell when picked up. When I tell you this game's charm is, well, its biggest charm, I mean it. When you're at the end of a level, you'll notice the gong. By tail whipping it is how you finish the stage. Any crystals you have will actually be stored, and so you are encouraged to pick up as many as you can because it could lead to more lives, which you absolutely need in this game. However, in order to get the 6th Gobbo, you must proceed through the crystal coloured door. Usually this will have some sort of puzzle or challenge. Starts off relatively simple and gets more difficult as you go on. Some of these puzzles can be tricky, especially if you are like me and have a hard time controlling Croc. Again, hoping the new controls will make puzzles a less of a pain. Crystals aren't the only way to get lives. Look out for hidden sparkles throughout some stages, which will transport you to a bonus area. Here, you get to the end of the course while picking up lives as you go. They don't give them for free though. If you aren't careful, you could lose a life trying to get one. Some are even hidden platforms down below where you have to take a leap of faith. They are pretty well hidden. Lives are not something you get often in Croc, so you need to keep an eye out for bonus areas. As for enemies, generally you will see Baron Dante's minions, these little Dantinis. Some will try to run into Croc, some will have pitchforks and shoot projectiles, probably the ones I have the most trouble with. Then there's patrolling ones that are usually on climbable grates and may try to stump Croc off. You will occasionally see variations like ice versions that throw snow at you and other enemies to fit that world. After every third level you are greeted with a boss fight. You'll have a cutscene with Baron Dante using magic to affect animals and other creatures, transforming them and controlling them to do his bidding. The boss fights in this game aren't great, I've got to be honest here. This is a good showcase of how bad the hitboxes can be in this game. The depth perception makes it hard to tell if you are actually in contact with the enemy or not. There's not a clear indication on hits outside of maybe the boss grunting with a little sound effect, or they react a little. Sadly, it gets worse. Did I forget to mention there is swimming in this game? The controls are sadly no better. I may even go to say they are worse than ground controls. Croc moves incredibly slow, and that tank-like movement remains. You press the X button to dash forward, or hold down X to slowly swim in a direction. Now, I wouldn't mind too much about the controls, but they sometimes put enemies down here and attack you so quick it's hard to avoid. You are also not doing much underwater. Usually you are looking for a key for a cage or a door. Thankfully these sections aren't long. However, they gave us one boss fight underwater and I have always struggled. It feels so awkward to try and scurry away to avoid being hit. There's nothing graceful about this movement. Underwater sections in video games can be fun. Spyro, for example, has one of my personal favourites. Controls great, you can charge underwater. With some luck, this will be improved with the remaster too. To the second world of Ice and Snow, you already start to see the difficulty of the game increase. I hope you are used to the tank controls, because now you've got ice physics with tiny platforms as well as bottomless pits aplenty. Does have a dog though, that's always a win. Once again the soundtrack shines through with its Christmas feel. Just needs a Christmas tree and we'll be golden. I just want to mention that I love the look of this game. It might not be doing things that other PlayStation platformers were, but I still appreciate the aesthetics. It's a cutesy 3D platformer, like a cozy comfort zone from your childhood. World 3, and that would be the desert world. Ooh, the music. We got another aesthetically pleasing world with some pretty backdrops like this one at night. A lot more caves filled with mud pits, but they act just like lava. The occasional dark areas with a temporary light adding an extra challenge to platforming. Having to make much larger jumps in some of these stages while throwing a water section at you a couple of times. We've even got this unique ghost race challenge in these bonus doors. It follows the path of the crystals, so you have to race on ahead. But don't collect too many of them, otherwise the ghost picks up tremendous speed and overtakes you. The ghost collecting the crystals will slow it down, so you have the challenge of the course on top of trying to actively not collect the crystals in this case. I don't mind this challenge, it's actually a pretty interesting gimmick. If you felt the difficulty increase in World 2, then I think you'll notice a gain here, but at least by now you should have a pretty good grasp and understanding of this game. A shame this world has the worst boss fight, but hey, the other one isn't too bad. On to World 4, and that's Baron Dante's Castle, starting from the bottom. I really like the look of this one. Dark, medieval style with red carpets on wooden pathways. Reminds me a little of the Dark Castle levels in Crash Bandicoot 1. Now we are introduced to some new mechanics for some of these stages. For example, these shrinking platforms, which also used in one of the bonus doors where you got to wait to the last minute for the next platform to appear. Large platforms moving around, up and down, and even these really strange sequences where you are falling for a while as pirate enemies come after you. I mean, I like it though, it's something unique thus far. When we enter the tower, we are treated to what feels like a very dark and creepy dungeon. Inside, we are greeted by a dangerous looking prisoner that's shackled. You have to press these switches to open some doors, but he will try to attack since they are placed in front of him. Even the music here makes it feel unsettling. It's really good. At one point, you have to blow up this balloon man. It's really odd, and technically the only time it happens. You have to pick a door to open by pushing the guy and then inflating him until he pops. It's kinda dark. Why is he here? Who is he? Why is his existence just to die for us to proceed? Croc, what are you implying? Then there's these speedy lot that dash around and leave a fire trail. You have to avoid them and the fire. They will get tired before dashing again. Now this is where things really get tough, probably even the hardest stage in the game. There's this guy with a hammer called Pete. When he hits a switch, these platforms will flip from safe to spikes. However, depending on which he hits, platform will do different things. They may move up and down, side to side, forward and back. The trick is to watch the pattern where he swings his hammer to see what the platforms do, then plan when to jump. Otherwise you are going to lose tons of lives. Not to mention when you have to stand on them and they flip over, you have to move quick. This level can take a while, especially if you mess up. Even if you've mastered the tank controls, this is where the real challenge begins. Because if you fail going up this section here, there's no checkpoint, so you have to start from the bottom. There's no other way to describe it other than this is rough. If you jump too early, you won't land on the platform. Too late, and you'll slide right off. There's even longer platforms where you need to run and time your jump correctly. It's pretty brutal, I'm not gonna lie. Don't know how anyone as a kid even got this far, only to meet with this? Dang. I hope you've got plenty of lives at this point. If you somehow made it past the last level of the fourth world, it's Baron Dante time. Doesn't really do anything that you haven't already seen outside of trying to charge you, but consider this a harder version of some previous attacks. I find constantly moving helps a lot in avoiding attacks, especially this phase throwing projectiles. Running under him makes it hard to hit you. Dodge his attack and wait for an opening as you go through 3 phases. And there we have it. That's Croc done. We saved the Gobbo King, peace restored, and a statue was made because Croc is just that awesome. However, even though optional, I think we need to look at everything. Before I give my thoughts and overall hopes for the remaster, it's time to unlock the bonus world. When you have all 6 Gobbos in all of the levels, 2 secret ones per world appear. These secret stages are a bit more challenging than the normal ones, even combining elements and mechanics from other levels. Except you have no Gobbos to collect, but rewarded puzzle piece at the end. These feel like extra bonus challenges to keep the adventure going, just remixed in a way. Once all the puzzle pieces are collected, this secret 5th world appears with what looks like a crystallized Baron Dante. This music right here sets the tone perfectly. mysterious, somewhat scary. There's more? The adventure isn't over. Nothing we can't handle though, one more set of levels to go through. And at the end, you are greeted with this crystallized Baron Dante. Why is he like this? I have no idea. He's floating above a bottomless pit surrounded by gongs. You must quickly hit all the gongs by avoiding his projectiles, and either jumping on these tiny platforms or do what I do and jump from corner to corner, much easier. This can either be a quick fight or a tricky one, but once you hit the gongs, he breaks into crystals and Croc takes one as a souvenir. That's kinda messed up, Croc. You just took a part of this guy's body. Roll the credits once again. You've done it! 100% complete. The bonus world isn't too long. The boss fight is again nothing special, but the ominous music that plays, the retreading of levels combining the different elements, was a fun way to mix things up and test the journey thus far. However, my nostalgia biases aside, I wouldn't necessarily say you are missing out by getting all the Gobbos. It is at the end of the day bonus content for completionists, or if you really want a bit more of Croc. And I can't say no to that. Finally, I can talk about what I would like to see in the remaster, the perfect opportunity to give this game some much needed quality updates to hopefully turn an average platformer into a great one, somewhat. Because as much as I love Croc, it is average, especially when comparing to what we've had in the past, Mario 64, Crash Bandicoot, Spyro the Dragon. But I am hopeful at least we can make this version of Croc the best he can be. These points I cover are still of course my opinion, so you may not agree with what I state here. Be sure to let me know in the comments what you would like to see for this remaster. Most of what I will talk about can be considered quality of life.
Sometimes it's life. Try and get the life.
The crystal sound effects clashing. Each time you pick up a crystal, it has a jingle. Normally this is fine, but if you say break a box and pick up all the crystals inside, especially the ones that you slam into that has 10, the sound effect tries to play at the same time, meaning you hear a very sharp sound in your ear. It's minor, I grant you, as it only happens if you collect a bunch of crystals, and it doesn't happen often. But I feel like it could be an easy fix, and my ears would appreciate it. The obvious one being a new control scheme, which I already know that they're going to have one, so yeah, we'll pretty much just have to see what happens. Hitboxes, as I mentioned earlier, could make boss fights less finicky. Having a much more clear indication that I can hit an enemy or I may bump into one would stop players easily losing crystals or potential lives. Speaking of lives, at this point I think that lives in platformers should be an option. Back in the day it was all the norm, so that's fine, but this is why an option to switch between no lives or a life system would be a nice quality of life update, and also welcome in more players. Now this one not everyone is going to agree with, but some of these puzzles for Gobbos can be pretty tough. And if it's the one at the end of the stage and you fail it, you have to start the level again from the beginning. Now, most of Croc levels aren't long. However, I still felt somewhat frustrated having failed to solve the puzzle, miss out on the Gobbo and have to start all over again. The solution? Allow players to retry the puzzle, even if you have to leave the room and go back in. Could even make it an option if you have to. This might be more of a me thing again, but the monkey bar climbing always felt a bit too slow. Now, they actually increased the speed in Croc 2, so I basically think they should just do something like that, where you get the speed of Croc 2 or something similar. Overall, these are small improvements but meaningful to the experience. As it is, Croc is still an average platformer. It has a lot of charm, aesthetically pleasing to look at, its music is still phenomenal, but the controls and difficulty can be a problem. It doesn't do anything say new in this day and age, but it's a classic platformer. A lot of people's childhoods will remember Croc fondly. I know he can be better with some much needed updates. When the remaster does drop, I bet it will have a release day by the time I finish this, I'll be back once again to see if our favourite crocodile has what it takes to stand amongst the greats. This channel is all about 3D and 2D platformers like Croc, so be sure to check out the video on screen now. See you in the next one.